I felt like I needed to be working more as I was so used to working around the clock. But it was a moment for me that was like, oh, they do watch. And you think when you're younger and you're in this business, your legacy is going to be the mark you left on the sporting world.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Women's League podcast. She's Abby. I'm Naoko. Today, we're going to talk to a very special guest, a good friend of mine, Heidi Watney. She is a longtime Major League Baseball reporter. She is now with Apple TV's MLB package. Also was a Boston Red Sox sideline reporter where we got to know her.
She was so gracious to let us into her home and talk to us a little bit about what her life is like now that she's made that transition from network television and how much more time she gets to spend with her family and her two young boys. And so we're just really grateful to Heidi for taking so much time to talk with us and to share and to be so honest.
Yeah, it was really compelling. It was really enlightening. So here's our conversation with Heidi Watney. Heidi, first of all, how are you? We were going to do this in your dining room with your kids around.
Oh, you want them around? They're very noisy. I don't think you want them around. You won't hear anything else. I have two amazing boys, but they are 3 and 6, and they're loud and they are wild. So
the reason why we wanted you to come on this podcast is because we are talking to a lot of women who are in the sports industry, but there's still just a very select few of us that are parents and working in the industry. And I can't imagine what it was like working some of your quick pitch hours, right? Middle of the night, and you had little kids. How did you survive that?
I hosted Quick Pitch from when I was still single to getting engaged, got married, then eventually having kids. And yeah, when I first took the job, I love the show and I love all the people I work with. But when I first took the job, I would sleep till 1 PM. I would sleep from 5 a.m. to 1, no big deal, blackout shades, noise canceling machine, whatever. And then I got married, and it's a little harder to sleep that late when your spouse is waking up and whatever, but it was fine. And then I had kids, and even though I had a nanny that got up with the baby in the morning, I still wasn't able to sleep. And so eventually, after having my second child and still going to bed at 4 a.m, 5 nights a week, I went to my boss and I was like, I can't keep doing this. I can't keep doing these hours. We want to move back to California. So yeah, we moved back, and part of me is sad that chapter ended, and maybe I could have made it work a little bit longer. But you also have to prioritize your family and what's going on in your life too. I love the show. I love the people. I'm still in touch with all the folks at MLB Network. I still work for them, just freelance out here in California, and now I'm not a zombie mom. Who gets 4 hours of sleep.
Especially when you have two rambunctious boys. I mean, that makes a huge difference. I can feel I have two, 8 and 5. And I have a lot of late nights too, traveling with the NBA. And I can just feel the difference in my patience from when I've gotten 5 hours of sleep versus when I've gotten 3.5. And I just start fraying so much faster.
Yeah, absolutely. Your patience, right? Just your capacity.
Yes, gets depleted and you don't have sleep to handle all of that. So to do that baseball season is 9 months, 10 months out of the year. So to feel that every day of your life would be exhausting.
I love what I'm doing now. And I love being at the network and all the folks there. But what I'm doing now, where I do Friday night baseball, I prep during the week from home. I travel Thursday. I do a game Friday. I come home Saturday. And I'm tired when I get home, but it's the weekend. So, usually my husband's around and he can help with the boys. And then, it's just, I get that work part of my life, and then I get my home part of my life. And I feel like it's a good balance for where I'm at right now. And I'm not, like you said, just constantly running on fumes and getting 4 hours of sleep a night and trying to do too much. And I think that's something that as women in this business, we often do, is we want to be the perfect mom and we want to be there. And I don't want to leave them just to nannies. And I want to, be present and help them with their, now my 6-year-old is in first grade and the homework and the, different things and make sure I'm at their sporting events and make sure I'm, watching them and cheering them on and having time to play with them, but also working. And in this business, especially, I feel like the higher you get in terms of national networks, people want you on all the time. and they deserve that. And it is a privilege to work in those, bigger roles, but it doesn't leave a lot of time for your family if you're working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So I'm happy where I'm at now because I have a bit of a balance. And, my kids are only young once. They're going to, the baby will be 4 next month. And then he's going to go to school. And then once they're in school full time, and they won't want you. They won't need you and want you around as much as they do when they're babies. And I spent, the first 3 years of my oldest son's life, working all the time. And he was with nannies a lot, and which is fine. Nannies were great, but I love where we're at now.
I just had this conversation with somebody else where we were talking about, well, when they're older, they'll be able to be more self-sufficient and blah, 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 blah. But he said to me, he said, actually, Naoko, as they become older, you want to be around more because you want to be around in those afternoons and evenings when they're playing sports, and you want to go to the games. You don't want to be sitting at somebody else's game, even though it's for work. You want to be at their game. So he's like, so then there's like a different push and pull when it comes to the schedule and working nights, weekends, holidays, and all that.
I also think it's something that no one prepares you for. There's no set of rules, and there's no map or guideline for how to do something. Particularly, like Naoko said, I mean, there are so few of us. And so when I was going through it the first time, I think I felt like I was lucky enough because I had 2 people to talk to. Jackie McMullen, who is a Hall of Famer and was still around the Celtics on a regular basis. And she had gone through this, years ago, was obviously the trailblazer and all of that. But she had never traveled with the team and been on the road and had to deal with nursing while you're doing that. And there's no roadmap for any of this. And all of us are just struggling to get by and do the best that we can.
Yeah. Yeah. And then look good doing it.
Yeah. And you have to look good while you're doing it.
On both right back. And right. Don't look tired. Don't get distracted or not be focused. Make sure you hear every bit of breaking news. And before I had kids, I had sports on my television nonstop. Actually, still do. And thankfully, my boys like sports. But you're constantly reading, studying, prepping. I feel like I was married to my job. That's what I did, especially in baseball season, but even not in baseball season. Even when you're on vacation, you're still getting the alerts. You're still paying attention to the news. And so then you become a mom and you're responsible for taking care of these other human beings. And it's a lot, right? They need to be fed and bathed and clothed and homework and, cared for and loved and hugged and played with. And to do all of that is just like, there's just not enough hours in the day. So it's great that you had Jackie to lean on and others to lean on. And I think it's tough because you want to be out there saying, yes, women can do it all. We can do it all. But at some point in life, you have to make choices about what your priority is. And it's great when there are places of employment that allow you to be a mom and have those hours and have that time to be present for your family. And I've talked to so many people in the baseball world, being an insider. You should be an insider. You have all these connections in the sport. All the GMs, I do. I talk to the agents, the GMs, the players. Like, I've got those relationships, but I can't be married to my phone breaking news all the time. I just can't, because I won't be a good mom, and I would be frazzled, and I would be at the end, I just wouldn't be good for my family. And I think, you think when you're younger and you're in this business, your legacy is going to be the mark you left on the sporting world or the baseball world or whatever you're doing. And I'm like, actually, I think I'm coming to realize my legacy is my kids. And I better pay attention to them, and I better do a good job with them. And, I want to be the best field reporter. I've started doing some football, studio host, whatever. I love all of that, and I want to do that, but I don't want to neglect my kids.
I think it's so interesting and wonderful to hear you say that, because I feel like it's also in this industry, that is the one thing that we can control is our family lives and how much energy and being present that we can actually devote to that. Whereas in this business, we really have no control over it. It takes one person who likes you and then can take you to the top or bring you all the way back down. And even if you put everything that you have in there, and you bring out being an insider, and yes, they're on 24/7. There is not a moment off. You have to be absolutely accessible all the time. And Heidi, I noticed, so I do want to ask you about baseball because I think that is a unique sport in that just how much time, and not only during the game days, but just the entire season with spring training and all of that.
Yeah.
But
Commitment.
covering my first NBA finals, there are national reporters who I feel really lucky because I'm on a beat. So half of my games are at home to begin with. Yes, I travel a lot and I'm gone a lot, but half of my games are at home. There are national reporters who start from the beginning of the playoffs, which is mid-April, and basically could not go home until late June because they don't have a home team or a place to follow. So if every series that they're covering goes 7 games, they just hop around and do laundry while they're out. And it made me realize there's one female who is a national NBA writer and does something like that. Like, a mother could never do that job. I could not leave my home for 3 months and just bounce around from city to city and assume that everything at home is going to be okay, nor would I want to. And I think that those are just realities that you don't realize until you're faced with
become a mom.
those decisions, that you have to do. But there are many dads on the beat who, and I'm not saying that they're bad people or bad dads. It's just, I feel like as a mom, we feel so much more responsibility towards those things. And it's, like you said, it's really choosing where your priorities are. But my question to you, Heidi, is did you always want to be a mother? And how much did that conflict with the baseball lifestyle and schedule?
I did. I grew up in the Central Valley of California, and I call it the Bible Belts of California. It's a conservative pocket of the state, and family values. And my mom and dad are still married, and grew up in the church, and just grew up in that's what you did. You worked too. You had your life, but you had kids, and I love kids, and I had a big family. I love big families, so that was never something that I never entertained the thought of not having a family. I also love sports. And actually, I'm in this business because my friends in college that I would watch sports with had suggested that I do it because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And they said, you should be one of those sideline chicks. You love sports. You're a performer. You can get in front of a camera. And I thought it was a good fit. And it's taken me so many amazing places. And like you say, for the national writers, for a decade at MLB Network, I would pack 2 giant suitcases. Now, the baseball postseason's only about a month, so it's different than NBA, but I would pack 2 giant suitcases, and I would leave the last day of the regular season. I would leave the next day, go cover the wild card, the GS, the LCS, and the World Series. And if the series didn't go full, I could come home in between and dump some clothes. Otherwise, I just went from series to series to series the whole month. And it was fun, and it was crazy, and it was like lugging these giant suitcases around because you're on TV, so you need different outfits every day. And also, the beginning of October and the end of October, you don't know if you're going to Boston or if you're going to be in LA the whole time. You needed all kinds of different weather situations and whatever. But I remember I got it down to a science. I would pack 45 outfits for about 30 days on TV because between the 45 outfits of 15 warmer, 15 layering middle, 15 cold, I should be able to get through no matter what teams progress, or if it's a New York, Boston World Series and it's cold weather cities or whatever. So anyway, it was just my science that I had it down to. And then once I had kids, they asked if I wanted,
We could do an entire podcast on packing.
Oh, yes,
right. Once I had kids, they asked if I wanted to take a series off. And at first I said, no, I've got, this is our postseason. I can do it. And I did. And and it was great. And then the pandemic hit, and I was actually pregnant in 2020. And so the baseball postseason was in a bubble, and they were going to have to quarantine. And I had a 2-year-old, and I was 7 months pregnant. And they were like, we're going to let you be from studio. So that was kind of the start of me not traveling for the entire postseason, was because I was 7 months pregnant in a global pandemic. But so that threw a whole wrinkle into
to keep
everything.
you home, though. That's the point of that story. You had to be 7 months pregnant and a global pandemic for you to say, okay, I will sit this one out.
Right. Yeah. Yes. And, the great thing with FaceTime and family, and I was able to do all of that. And even now, if I didn't have my family close by, I couldn't do the job that I do. So when I'm out of town, my husband sometimes travels for his work too, and We had 4 weekends this fall where we were both gone. 2 of mine for baseball. He travels with the football team for Fresno State. And then 2 of my football games that I did where we were both gone. So it was his mom, my mom would come and they would, take care of the kids. And that's great. And we're lucky we have that because when I lived on the East Coast and I had a full-time live-in nanny, I still wasn't comfortable leaving my kids overnight or for a weekend with the nanny.
Yeah.
She was wonderful. Love her. It's not family. Those aren't actually her children. And, push come to shove, if there was an emergency or something, like I just wasn't comfortable with it. So that was part of what led to like us making the decision. But that's the crossroads I came to in 2021 was, okay, my contract is up here at MLB Network. Do I want to stay here and keep doing this and live on the other side of the country from my family so that I can keep doing the job that I love? Or do I want to move back closer to family and take a step back and kind of bet on myself that I'll figure it out there? And we did, and we have, but it was a very difficult transition because I went from hosting a show 5 nights a week, that one of the most watched shows in baseball, at least, baseball people watch it. And being at all the Jewel events and being at the World Series and being at the All-Star game and every big event in baseball, I was right there reporting or hosting for MLB Network. And I was a working mom. Now I came out here and thankfully MLB Network said, we have this Apple TV package, Friday Night Baseball. We want to use you on it. Great. I've gotten some other random freelance things I do, like college football. I reported for a drone racing show where I interviewed the drone pilots. I mean, like random stuff that I'm doing out here that's really fun and kind of broadening my horizons, which is great. But there was a period of time where I felt like I needed to be working more, as I was so used to working around the clock, especially like the baseball season is, that it was like it was a difficulty for me to figure out who I was in this new role as a mom who works as opposed to a working mom. Does that make sense? I've gotten to a good place now where I'm like, I actually love the balance I have now. I can take on other, had some college football and CW Sports Network. I love college football, so it's been a blast. And I have the capacity to take on more because I feel like I've gotten to a good place with all of that. But for a while there, it was tough. It was tough just psychologically, emotionally to figure out how to balance wanting to be present for my kids, but also not wanting to give up this career that I worked so hard for and that I love.
And I think that's probably a sentiment that a lot of working moms have, right? Like
regardless of what your job is.
Right. Regardless of whatever your job is, like what you want to be, like you said, everything to everyone, to every aspect of your life. And you just can't. And you have to make compromises. You have to find your balance point. And like looking back on it, you tell us, like, how do you feel like you made the right decision for yourself and your family?
For my family, yes, 100%. Don't regret any of it. Every now and then I'm like, I should not be doing 7 loads of laundry right now. I should be hosting a TV show.
Oh, the housework is the worst.
Like
that's what the pandemic did for me. It taught me that I could never be a stay-at-home mom. And Heidi, I'll tell you, I have the luxury. I don't work in the summertime, in the off season, which I couldn't do if I didn't have a husband and was making enough to support us through those months. But the first couple of weeks for me are always the hardest because I'm just like, what am I doing? Should I be? And then you stare at the piles of laundry and you're like, I know I should fold you. I see you. I see you staring at me. I don't want to right now. It just takes me a while to get into a groove to be like, oh yes, this is my life right now.
That's what I'm working on right now. And baseball season ended and I went right into doing some college football. But I did my last college football game. But now I'm like, okay, the holidays are here. So, and that's the great look. The baseball calendar is grueling and long and crazy, but you have Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's pretty much off. I mean, you're staying up on the news and, when I was in studio at MLB Network, we're still doing shows, but you're not grinding away like you are in season. So yeah, so that keeps me busy. But I think for me, January is the hardest month because I get to January and I'm like, baseball doesn't
Itching.
start.
Yeah,
for
you're just like itching,
month.
ready to go.
Or February is particularly hard too, because that's the month when everybody's like, all right, let's do this. Let's
Yeah.
work out, let's do everything perfect.
And you feel like you're missing something, or you're not doing enough, because that's
Yep.
my slowest month of the year in terms of work. But I don't know. It's tough, and for everyone, it's different. In my dynamic and with me, I couldn't delegate all the momming. I can delegate some work. I can hire a housekeeper. I can have hire people to do certain things. I couldn't delegate nurturing my children. I couldn't be a mom who was away all the time. And I think I've found a good balance for me. But everyone needs to find. That's the thing about it, is everyone's point, everyone's like compromise for your career and your family and your life and your sanity is going to be different, right? So you just have to figure out what's right for you, and it's certainly not easy. But I'm lucky in that I have people I work with that are great about it.
Yeah. Do you still find yourself kind of glued to your phone at times, just looking at the news and like wanting to know what's constantly breaking? You do.
Yes, for sure. And even in season 2, it's my producers will call or text at any given point. Baseball prep is a little different than college football prep, because like for college football, I'm talking to SIDs on a Monday, and then on a Tuesday and Wednesday, I'm talking to student athletes, and I kind of have to be available for when they're free. So I'm like, like have my phone, like, hang on, let me. And then if my kids are home, just like when we were setting up for this thing, I picked up my son from preschool at 11:15, and I'm like, okay, sit here and you can watch Bluey while mommy's on the computer. Like, try to, be quiet. And it's helpful now for me that my 3-year-old is actually in preschool, so I have like 3 hours of like to myself every day.
Heidi, can I ask you, how did you even find the time to meet your husband? Even start a family with that schedule?
My coworker set us up, actually. A coworker, when I started at MLB Network, Matt Vasgersian, knew I was from California, and he said, I think I've got a guy for you. Do you have a boyfriend? And I was like, I'm kind of dating someone from back home, but like, it's not working. It's long distance. It's not going to work out. And so we introduced us, and then I didn't actually meet him for like 6 more months, because he was the assistant GM in Miami, and I was living in New York City. And I said to Matt, like, there's 10 million people in this city. You couldn't find someone here? Like, anyone? Really? You can try to set me up with a guy living in Miami. But when he came with the team for the MLB draft, he introduced himself, and we hit it off right away. He's also from California. His parents and my parents live 2 hours apart. And,
wow.
And it's great, especially now that we've moved back out here, and he has I'd say I hit the in-law jackpot. Like, my mother-in-law is the sweetest human on the planet, and so helpful, and wants to help, and loves my boys. And so, and my mom is the same way. I couldn't do it without my mom. I couldn't do it here where I'm at. So, so we're super lucky in that aspect. But yeah, Matt set us up, and we're both similar backgrounds, similar values, but both working in this crazy baseball world that we were living in. So
it's just such non-traditional schedules. Like you said, basically you were working overnights, but then also to find someone who understands the sports calendar and how important certain events are and what it takes to be successful in those arenas, I think is something that it's hard to find, few and far between.
Mm-hmm. Do you see a difference, Heidi, your boys are at different ages now, but do you see a difference in how they were, back when you were working those crazy hours, and then now that you are more present in their lives?
It's hard to say, because when I moved out here and like took a step back from working so much, my oldest was 3.5. And the baby was a baby, like literally not even a year old. So he doesn't ever remember living in New York, New Jersey. And even my now 6-year-old, I'll ask him some questions, and he doesn't really remember like going into MLB Network. He remembers our nanny. He remembers living there. And I will say I noticed a difference in my younger kid versus my older kid at the same age. But at the same time, my firstborn was an only child at the time, had a live-in nanny who took care of his every need. Like, he was just calmer and easier. And the second children just aren't like that.
Second child syndrome. And not syndrome, but just second child.
Yeah, he's definitely got more spunk to him, but he's also not catered to like my first child was. And I try to remind my husband he's only 3, and we, like, have expectations of him that are probably a little, higher than a normal 3-year-old. My 6-year-old's in first grade. He loves when I can volunteer in his classroom. He wants, I have to miss some of his little league games in the spring because of my travel schedule, but I'm there as much as I can in videos and whatever. But you notice the difference when you're not there, right? Like, they can tell you all about it and you can watch videos and whatever, but there's nothing like, when he's on first base because he got a base hit and he looks over right at you and he's like so excited. And so that's a part of just, balancing it all. I tell them all the time how lucky they are because they get to live in a great place surrounded by their family. And, we're out here in California where you can be outside, all year round and play sports and have fun. And that's all my boys want to do. They get to go run around. My husband oversees baseball at Fresno State as well. And my 6-year-old will go out there to practice with him and run around with the guys. He's almost like their little mascot. They give him their necklaces or their batting clubs. And he just thinks it's the greatest thing in the world. And, we go to all the football games and he has such a blast. And that's one of the things I love about living up here is it's just a very good, like, it's a family friendly and like good family values type place. And I love that for my family.
Heidi, your career has had an awesome arc, right? Like, you started, with your friends telling you you're going to be good at this, and then you actually got into it. You had opportunities. You came to Boston. You were with the Red Sox. You went to MLB Network. In that career arc, if you look back at your younger self, like, what kind of advice would you have?
I've always known that I was lucky and blessed to get the jobs that I had. The Boston Red Sox reporter, Naoko, like, actually, Abby, you both know, like, that town is so fanatical about their sports. I love that's still, like, outside of living in California, Boston was my favorite place to live. I absolutely love it there. But I have great friends there still. Love to go back and visit. I was very sad I didn't have a game at Fenway this year for Friday Night Baseball because it's just it's a magical place. And then to go to MLB Network and work at, a national network. And like I said, be at all the marquee events, all the jewel events, and get to interview all these Hall of Fame players to call people like Derek Jeter and David Ortiz and Ken Griffey Jr. friends because I know them. I've worked them. Pedro Martinez, John Smoltz. We all shared offices together, and to sit and have an opportunity. Buck Showalter and Joe Girardi and some of the great minds of the sport that worked at MLB Network. So I don't feel like I took it for granted, but I think that would be the one thing I would say is just like cherish that time because you're still there and you're working and you're constantly like, what's the next thing and what's the next thing and what's the next thing. And I wish I took more pictures. I'm terrible I am not the selfie queen. I'm not like if you see pictures on my Instagram, it's because I had a producer who was taking pictures of me on their own. And at the end of the day was like, oh, here, I took these for you. And I'm like, oh, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I didn't even.
But wait, this is so sad. But like not 10 years ago. So were we there together back in 2000, like 10,
there
11,
was no
like
iPhones.
We didn't have iPhones, Cashew.
We have Blackberries now. Calling Blackberries.
Yes. I think we started with a Sony Palm. And listen to me, I sound like an Asian person now. We started with the Sony Palm, and then we got BlackBerry.
Yeah, with a pencil, with the pen too.
I know so many reporters that are like, "Oh, we take a picture in every ballpark," and I've like taken it for them sometimes. And I'm like, "Do it," because I didn't. And I've been to every major league ballpark, and like, there's definitely some. I don't think I have pictures of me at Old Yankee Stadium, which was still open my first year reporting for the Red Sox in 2008. Like, there's just so many things that I wish I would have documented better, I guess, and kept a journal. I've never been a journaler. I'm like, who has time for that? Like, I already have all my thoughts. They're in my head. I don't need them on paper as well. Like, I just have never been that kind of person. But now looking back, I'm like, I should have kept a journal. I should start writing down some of like the stories I remember and the like really cool things that I did, or like documenting it somehow, just for me and my family, not like to write a book. I've been asked if I wanted to write a book a number of times. Nobody needs to read that book, but
I know.
The way I make myself feel better about that, I tell myself I was present in those moments.
That's a good.
I was trying to be in the moment. Is how I rationalize that.
And never too late to start either. Like you can start now, right?
right. I want to do that. Just kind of start writing down some stories that it's just so like, when I'm old, I can, look back and say, I did some really cool things. It's great.
Heidi, do you have a secret for walking into those rooms with those Hall of Famers and the executives at MLB and all of that, walking in with confidence and owning and taking up space?
Well, for me, that came with experience, right? Like, I've been around so long, and I will tell you a story that I should write it down again. I walked into
now though, so it's good.
Yeah, there we go. There we go.
Finish it.
I want to say it was like the 2015 postseason, and I was covering the Pirates, and I walked in to the dugout early afternoon, and Andrew McCutcheon was sitting there, and I said, "Oh, Andrew, I wanted to introduce myself. I'm Heidi Watney," and he's like, we don't all know who we are. We watch Quick Pitch every single night. Like, everyone here knows who you are. And I was like, that for me was like a moment. And, it's self-serving, the story, like, oh, all these people. But it was a moment for me that was like, oh, they do watch. Like, they do know. Like, I belong here as much as they do, right? Because you always feel like, as a reporter in general, you walk into a clubhouse or a locker room and you're in their space. You walk into a dugout, you're in their space, right? And that's what they tell you too. This is their space. You're not supposed to sit down. You're not supposed to do this. You're not supposed to talk. You're all these rules, right? And so when I started as the Red Sox reporter, I walked in and I didn't know that. And I sat down next to Jerry Remy one time and I was screamed at by a coach. I left, like, held it together, walked out, and bawled in the bathroom. Like, then for the next year, felt like I didn't belong, right? You learn those lessons, you prepare, and then you go back in. But for me, it's like when you walk into, like, to your original question, feeling like you belong in this space for anyone, male or female. But it is harder for women because you're going into a place where men are changing, dressing, showering, whatever, and there's going to be that stigma, right? Having the experience, do your homework beforehand, having the knowledge, being prepared. It's what I say with anything in sports. Like, when you're doing live sports, you have to be over prepared because you can't just prepare for, like, I'm going to prepare for 6 in-game hits and a post-game interview and a pre-game interview and I'm good to go. No, you have to be ready for extra innings or a curveball or a pitcher like shits the bed in the first inning and now you've got a parade of relievers or whatever's going on. So if you're prepared, if you are, kind of know what you're getting into before you get into it, you're going to walk in with more confidence. And then just realizing too that everyone else there is, was in the same boat at one point too. Everyone started somewhere. And, that incident in the clubhouse that was in Minnesota, in the old stadium in Minnesota. And that has stuck with me also to the point of, like, realizing don't be a dick to people. Like, don't be a dick. That coach went on to be a manager someday. Do you think I ever had warm and fuzzy feelings? There's a way to do things and a way to treat people without belittling and demeaning people. It stuck with me, though. To this day, I've not sat down in a clubhouse, even when I've been invited to by a player. Nope. No, thank you.
But that doesn't make sense to me. Wasn't Jerry a broadcaster at that point? I mean, you're sitting next to your colleague.
He was. And that's why, like, he was sitting down. I went and sat down. I just started. I also was, like, so green when I started in terms of covering professional sports. I'd been in local sportscasting in Fresno, California, and I'd been in major league clubhouses and covered, like, the 2007 All-Star game in San Francisco, but not on a, like, team reporter kind of thing. And they kind of, like, gave me a suitcase and they're like, here you go, have fun. And And my producer pulled me aside and like calmly explained, like, this is what happens. And Jerry Remy is a former player. So he has a right to sit in a clubhouse because he was a player. And I get that. And I get that it's different for especially the field reporter who just started. But I also I just started. I just got there. I'm sorry. I didn't know. Had I known, I would have never broken the sacred rule of sitting down in a chair in a clubhouse. Baseball and their unwritten rules. It's great.
For all the young reporters out there, I think that is a rule that transcends sports. It's not to sit there.
Really just write the
Let's say no. Yeah, it's
where you go to the locker room. How important is that?
the manual.
Lumpy's Guide to Being Inside a Locker Room or Clubhouse. That manual, to my knowledge, doesn't exist, but maybe there's a market. We can put it together.
Can work on something like
that. Heidi, this has been such an enlightening conversation. We love hearing about your career, but also just, the challenges that you've had too as a mom. And, I hope that everybody that's listening to this can take inspiration from that.
I have one more question, Heidi. Can you sleep now? Like, no,
that's a good question.
Because I can't.
Never again.
Yeah, never again will I be a morning person. I don't think. I have to be up, and I am. I don't know how awake I am.
I'm not a morning person, but I wake up at 6:30 now because I have to get the kid, get everybody in the house up and out the door. And so even on the road sometimes, and I don't go to sleep before midnight, ever. It's just in my DNA to be up late. But now I have to get up early, at least during the school year. So I'll be on the road and I'll be up prepping and writing and whatever till 3 a.m, or you've changed time zones or whatever. And I still wake up so early and I'm like, why am I awake? I actually read something that I 1,000% believe is true, but I looked into it too, that women's brains, I'm going to mess this up, but it was a male's brain when they go to sleep is 70% asleep and 30% awake or something like that. And a woman's brain when they go to sleep is 10% asleep and 90% awake. And particularly once a woman has children, there's literally a physiological thing that your brain doesn't shut off because you're in protect mode constantly. And so when you think gosh, I had kids and I didn't sleep very well because I was nursing or because I was this or because I heard the baby or because of this, it literally is scientifically proven that women, once they have children, do not sleep very well because you're constantly on alert for a predator to take your child from cavemen days or something.
Evolutionary,
which is evolutionary. We need more help. We need more sleep to make up for that loss, but also that deficit. But also, you're telling me we're never going to sleep again. So it was everyone.
I thought it was 5 cups of coffee I drank, but okay.
No. I blame evolution. Right. Done. I can still drink coffee and wine.
It's totally screwed. But then, then kid looks at you as you're assembling lighted snowmen for the front yard and you're like, Mommy's my best friend. And it makes it all worth it, right?
Okay. Yes. Yeah, totally. Well, thank you again, Heidi, so much for doing this. We love chit-chatting with you. And I can't wait to see you on TV again soon.
Sounds good. Naoko, I miss you so much. You're always a light whenever I would go to Boston, and I just love you. Catherine Toppin and I were talking about just what a good human. And Abby, it's so great to actually meet you. You're fantastic. Thank you guys for having me on. I appreciate it.
No, thank you for coming and sharing.
Yes. One thing that did not make the cut here is Heidi telling us that she washed and blow dried her hair for our podcast.
I'm so moved,
Heidi. That's awesome. But no, we laugh about it because it speaks to how when you're a mom and you're constantly on the run, you just don't have time for certain things. And sometimes it's you don't wash your hair because it's going to take too long to dry it. And you need that time for other things, whether it's packing lunch, getting the kids, whatever, Ubered.
Yes. More often than not, if you see my hair slicked back, that's because I didn't shower that day. So that's okay. It's a reality. Right. That's real life.
Reality. It's okay. We love this episode, by the way.
Oh my gosh, she's amazing. I didn't realize just how intensive her job was at MLB Network and with Quick Pitch and 5 days a week working on a baseball schedule and those hours, that is insane. And to survive that and then to survive that through 2 pregnancies
and a pandemic
is
Yeah.
Incredible. I can't even wrap my mind around it. I also want to say that it's something women in this business, we do have to get ready for everything, and it takes us longer. And that is just what real life. And we do have to wash and blow dry our hair and curl it sometimes.
Put makeup on.
And put makeup on. What were you gonna say? You were gonna say I've never used a curling.
I've never used it.
Never used a curling.
I don't know how to do it. Yes. Okay. We're having a separate segment on that. But no, like you
Hair to make.
right? Yeah, hacking, right? That was a huge part of it. We're talking about like carrying just like 40 giant outfits.
Do you have enough clothes right now for 45
I
outfits?
don't know if I do. No, I probably don't.
I have enough clothes. I don't know if they would work into outfits.
Right. TV outfits.
Right.
No way. I have 45 TV outfits.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
And then just her passion for her children and being a mom and
Yeah, but I also like appreciated her talking about the inner struggle of wanting to work more and yet like knowing the best for her family was going to be to, balance her life out a little bit more. But like she still feels it. You could tell like she still has that thing to work more.
I think another hard truth about us and in this business is that so much of your self-esteem comes from this. And
work.
Being on TV, yeah. My sister, I love her. She has 3 kids, but she always says she loves being pregnant because it makes her subtly special. She just feels like she has something for herself. And I feel like this job gives that to us.
Yeah.
And so when it's not there, you really do miss it.
Yeah.
Even as much as I don't want my entire self-worth to be wrapped up in it, unfortunately, it's there.
Well, our hope is that these conversations sort of open the possibilities of moms, parents, women, busy women being able to exist in this stratosphere of work, right?
And know that you're not alone. And everyone, all of us are also going through these things. And we would love to hear from you. And we hope that it helps to hear our stories and our side of things as well.
Yeah. So send us a note.